We are live. Hello, YouTube. What is up? This is the Post Wrestling Cafe Hangout.
This is really a hangout today.
We're hanging out in my kitchen.
What? No. The post office kitchen.
Oops, sorry. Oh, God, I forgot.
We have a visitor.
Yes, we are in my kitchen today. John, of course, is going through some internet issues at his house. Therefore, we've had to bring operations over to my place, and I mean, this is really the best place to do it. So.
I love it, Way. I mean, how festive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I got to make you feel at home, of course. Christmas. We even have a sign, so we really kind of pulled out the budget for this one.
How are you doing today?
Not bad, not bad. Thursdays are always a little bit really hectic for us these days, because we try to fit in our review. We just recorded our review of Captain America, the First Avenger.
This is my third show today.
Oh my God, you did a show with WH this morning too. Yeah.
It is 3 p.m.
And then there's we tried to fit in lunch in there. We just had some delicious
Way gave me like a top 3 lasagna I've ever had in my life.
I mean, it's Costco, wink wink. So,
you could have lied to me. It was really good.
It was very good. Yes. So did that, and then we got to prep to set up for this thing, which involves more work than people think,
Were you subtly sending me a message by offering? Way was a great host. He offered me lunch, said, help yourself to any drinks. I've never given you any food at my house, and you're at my place so often now. Way, were you trying to give me a little nudge there?
Not
hey,
at all.
When Wai Ting comes over, there's a certain expectation level.
I do not expect it. I just happen to have extra food in my fridge, and we didn't really want to go because we had so much stuff to do. So that's it.
But here we are.
I do expect coffee from time to time, and what you do offer.
Coffee 24/7.
Yes, absolutely. You pretty much have a coffee dispenser in your fridge. That's what you should get.
That is the key. I'm stocked up on. I'll never run out of coffee ever. You know what I am enjoying actually this month is it's the 1 month of the year where they sell candy cane ice cream.
Ew,
the best.
That sounds fucking gross.
Oh, you're just weird.
Candy cane ice cream?
Yes.
Okay, so explain it to me, like a minty type of.
Yes, it's got some chocolate in it, some candy cane pieces, and it's vanilla ice cream.
That sounds okay.
It sounds great.
You actually like candy canes a lot, eh?
I'm not really a candy cane eater, no.
But candy cane ice cream,
the best.
Have you had your first what the hell do you call those? Peppermint. What's the Starbucks thing that
they have a peppermint mocha?
Yes.
No, I haven't had one.
Okay.
So let's move on.
So so it's the candy cane ice cream. Any other festive foods that you're really into?
No, not really. I do have peppermint Kahlua that I never have throughout the year, but come the holidays, you got to make some festive drinks. Yeah. I like making mixed drinks using peppermint Kahlua as kind of the base.
What's your drink outside of the?
I've experimented with a few. I tried this white Russian drink out of the Kahlua. Did not taste that good. Any that call for cream. I hate cream in my coffee, but alcohol, I'll make an exception. But it's the last one I made, I did not like at all. I think I'm just completely rejecting cream.
Will you be bringing some perhaps to Braden Davies' Christmas party?
Wait a second. Sorry. To be determined. I forget. We've had this discussion. Yeah, you have bailed on their party.
I have not bailed. I had a family engagement that happened to fall in the same
You have
day.
A priority above Braden Davey.
Yeah. But anyway,
is this a Christmas event with your family or just a gathering?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, more so a gathering. Okay. We don't formally really celebrate Christmas, but we do get together.
Yeah. I was gonna say if you just came up with a Christmas excuse, I was gonna call you on it because I know you guys do not.
Are you gonna track me now on that particular day?
On that tip. And momentarily, we're going to be joined by Sebastian Suave from Smash Wrestling. So stay tuned. Plus, we have a TLC preview. And if you care to call in, we will be taking calls. But one of my favorite podcasts, maybe my favorite podcast, is The Daily from the New York Times. This is my morning ritual, is listening to this on my ride into work.
Explain it for people who have not heard.
It's hosted by Michael Barbaro. And it's every day. It's just taking a different news story. And instead of just repeating the facts, they do such a great job of whether it's interviewing different journalists or getting to the why of the story, and they go deeper and they'll connect it to other different stories of what is the bigger story at play here. It's just such a fabulously produced short podcast. It's typically 20 minutes every morning. I'm addicted to it. And this week they had an episode on the amount of user data that these companies are compiling on you. And everyone is aware that it exists. But to this extent, I don't think it was known. There are some people whose whereabouts were pinged 14,000 times in a day. And the New York Times, they got their hands on this data of how much user data they have, where it's just dots. And it could literally follow you way of where you are going all day long. They could know everything they want to know about you. And it's frightening. It is frightening having location services turned on your phone, how much you are giving, probably with minimal knowledge.
And are we just talking about location? Are we also talking about, like, is the microphone on? You know, are they monitoring? They're obviously monitoring your.
From this story, it's not like location, but they selected a woman that was willing to come on the show to see her data analyzed.
Yeah.
And they're showing her going to work, the route she goes to get there and back. But then they show her at this location that's her ex-boyfriend's house that she's been going to. And she's like, I don't really care that people know this, but I can understand that people would be turned off by this. And they got to the point that, yes, it is maybe you're doing nothing wrong, that you don't want to hide anything. But with this surveillance, it is going to subtly adjust your behavior when you know you're being watched and followed, that may, it is going to be something that you are concerned with, and it's going to alter your everyday actions.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, I think we're already kind of seeing a lot of repercussions of that, like I remember, I remember like when the internet kind of first began and people were posting things on the internet, there's just such like a real cloud of anonymity that you just felt like you'd be able to talk shit about anybody and talk shit about anything with zero repercussion.
You sound like an asshole in high school.
I really was. I was a troll on a message board and everything like that. However, we'll be joined by Sebastian Suave in a second. I see he's in the chat room right here. But however, like, as we've kind of come to realize, anything you put out on the internet could come back to really haunt you. And I think we're already kind of seeing that. But that extends all the way until all this. This is almost like a completely different topic, but it's it is scary. And I think perhaps if people want to avoid all of that, can you see yourself giving up a cell phone? Can you see yourself?
I don't think anyone can. That's at this stage, you're too deep into it.
Yeah, I know.
I feel if I could go back, no, the answer is no. I don't think I could, but I would be curious to know how many people, when they signed up for Twitter or got an iPhone, if you could go back to that moment, would you proceed? I think most would, because it would be FOMO.
I feel like the positives outweigh the benefits. I like being connected.
Positives outweigh the negatives.
Sorry, yes, that's what I mean. I like being connected. Like, if I'm giving up a bit of my privacy in exchange to I don't know, be able to use the internet at any point, to look up Wikipedia anytime I want, to have Google Maps at my disposal. I don't know. I feel like that might be a worthy trade.
I just wish it was a bit more transparent of when I scroll to the bottom of the terms and services that I'm agreeing to and all the things I'm not reading. Part of it's on you, but it's also, they make it so impossible for you to I mean, I'm sure there's things in there that would frighten you to read, but I think at the end of it, you're still agreeing to it because the positive of what I'm getting out of this phone,
I know,
outweigh. You're willing to sacrifice your freedom.
It kind of is the game.
Which all goes back to season 1 of Serial and how they were not able to determine if Adnan was actually there and committed the murder or not. They tried to use cell phone towers to ping his location.
Never listened to that show, but I'll take
season 1 is very good. Season 3 was a big comeback. Season 2 lost a lot of people.
We have our guest on the line.
Excellent. It's with great pleasure that we are joined on the show by Sebastian Suave of Smash Wrestling. They have a card coming up this Sunday from the Franklin Horner Community Center in Etobicoke, Ontario, entitled In Your Dreams. And Sebastian, first of all, thank you so much for joining us.
Actually, first of all, Sebastian, I'm going to need you to unmute your microphone because I just muted you. So if you don't mind unmuting, hitting that little microphone.
There we go.
There we go.
Sebastian is on the show. He has made it.
Thanks for having me, guys. Always a pleasure.
Oh, Sebastian, thank you so much for helping us through our technological adventures to join us here live. Yeah. It is you get a golden star.
We've done no less than like 3 microphone tests with Sebastian prior to coming onto this. So thank you so much for obliging with us.
No worries, guys.
So we're just a couple of days out from the show in Etobicoke. We're going to go over that card. But what is a Thursday before a big show like for you? Is it just constant getting ready for a show like this, or have you done this enough times that it's kind of everything's in place and you know what to expect, whether they be curveballs coming your way or just having patterns down to know what to expect a couple days out?
There's always curveballs and a lot of miscellaneous things to do, but I've done it enough that that's what I do expect. Typically, the week before a show, it's not as productive on the big picture front for Smash Wrestling. There's a lot that that's part of my routine that has to be put aside to prepare for a show. But I've expected with every show, there's always a particular staff member who's not available, or you got to adjust to having more guys coming into flights, or there's a lot of different variables with a live event or with TV, even a social media presence that just takes your time away. But I wouldn't say these curveballs aren't anything that kind of play with my nerves. It's something you expect, and you're just trying to balance your schedule throughout the week to make sure the show is organized and prepared, but at the same time that if you're working on future shows or if you're working on any of your other fronts, that you're not kind of letting those things fall behind either.
You balance the big picture ideas with the day-to-day grind that you inevitably go through, because that's something that, I mean, me and Wai were actually just chatting about this earlier today. It's something we have a tough time with as well. How do you balance the big picture with the immediate?
We eventually got to a point about 2 years ago where we were too big to be small and too small to be big. And I do think as we've continued to grow, once in a while, I do mention to my team that we kind of fall back into that because the more you grow, you're going to just have more to handle. So even if you manage a few tasks, there's going to be even more stuff down the road. The balance is going to get even more challenging. And part of that has been, I think I've been pretty good over the years to not micromanage and trust some of our team with some of the other departments, even if short term I be more equipped. You do got to kind of coach other people or sometimes, to be honest, give someone a ball and trust them, even if they do drop the ball a bit. Some people need that experience, and you can't expect them to perfect their job over 1 or 2 days. So I think we've done pretty well with that, and it's freed up my own time. And like I said, a big picture for me, if I'm micromanaging too many of the small stuff, which is great show to show, you kind of procrastinate the big picture stuff that actually requires more of my attention. And I've kind of accepted the big picture stuff benefits us in the long term. So if my attention is there, I got to kind of make my peace if small stuff kind of falls behind a tad bit. If you take the bigger components of what we've been over the last 2 years, that's more important than, let's say, if raffle is organized. I don't want to underscore how important it is to have our staff organized and everyone knowing their roles, but you eventually put other people in a management role that they kind of take leadership of that, and they just keep you updated on everything. If someone sends me a spreadsheet with everything and I can give it the thumbs up, that's enough on my end.
How big is your staff these days, Sebastian, and how much has that grown since the time you began?
It's grown. It varies, but on our TV tapings, a live event can have anywhere from 18 to 25 people. Wow. Everyone plays different roles. I mean, we have a production manager who handles essentially everything from audio, lighting, the entrances, all the video packages, and handles leading our camera operators and all that. I run the backstage. We have a floor manager that leads the team for stuff like doors, merchandise, ring setup, a bunch of other fronts. We have 1 or 2 people who just really don't fall under any category, and like people who do content development and just need to focus on stuff like social media. As long as they really hit their checklist, I keep an eye out on if everything's at a pace there. But other people, you know, not downplaying, but some people, it's as simple as setting and tearing up the ring and during the show, doing their part of security. Other people have a role that's, you know, pretty much keeping them from 6 a.m. to 3 a.m. with us on heavier stuff.
Like figuring out what all those components are, was that something that, like, you know, you've had to figure out organically as you've kind of built Smash? Or
Absolutely. It's trial and error. I mean, not to downplay, but some roles are quote unquote more sexy and fun, right? Everyone would love to, you know, be a camera operator or run lighting and stuff for a show, or handle promos. But some of the other roles, like a floor manager, is one of the most essential roles for us. It keeps the organization and makes sure everything's done. Basically, to be blunt, we at times we've had a really big shit show with the doors or with our organization or with ticketing and a lot of other stuff, and that job is essentially to prevent a lot of this from happening, and at the same time, when it does happen, to not be nervous and say, I've dealt with this a dozen times, this is how we're going to solve it. That was something that has nothing to do with wrestling, and it just takes a little bit more maturity from myself and my team to prioritize and kind of say, hey, you know, yeah, we are putting something on TV. We do have these big names that come in, and it's nice to watch the show or have a job that involves with the overall presentation of the show. But there are other roles that are valued, and our team has been very good at kind of looking at where we have a hole and kind of trying to fix those rather than trying to take a fun job.
The landscape is looking really interesting in 2019, Sebastian, and where all these players are going to figure in. It seems that there's a big arms race for signing up talent in all of these different scenarios. Where do you see Smash Wrestling fitting into this particular landscape? You guys do have television, and you're a pretty well-regarded promotion. Talent-wise, are you expecting big changes in 2019?
Absolutely. I feel like the last time we had a long conversation, I kind of foreshadowed this being an issue for us. And that wasn't a revelation I had then with you. It was something I saw a year or two before that. I mean, it's nothing to complain about. There's pros and cons to it. And disregarding the pros and cons, I think people just have to accept this is the way it is and to kind of adapt. Whether you're a fan or whether you're a wrestler or whether you're a promoter, you can't complain. There's always an opportunity, and there's always an obstacle in either scenario. Pretty much for me, it started once WWE started with the Performance Center in NXT. You know, not being assumptive of what they did, but based on how their roster and their development was formed in the past, you didn't see many of those indie stars signed up. But once a guy like CM Punk and Daniel Bryan blew up, my theory was that they're going to sign 20, 30 of these guys aggressively. And if one or two of them are the next Daniel Bryan or CM Punk, they've got their return on investment. If another dozen of those guys end up being serviceable for 3 years, 5 years, they still get their return on investment. At this point, NXT's brand has grown to the point that if these guys are just NXT guys for 5 years and help that brand grow, they've got the return on their investment. So there's little to no risk for them to go grab 50 guys over the course of 1 or 2 years. And they've been more and more aggressive with that, not just with the independents in North America, but you've seen the transition to getting guys from New Japan or from the UK scene and gradually adjusting how they approach exclusivity or the balance of letting guys do indie dates. They're always at the top of the food chain. So whether people like it or not, it is a ripple effect. When they started with this at an early stage, Ring of Honor started their exclusive contracts, or at least some guys who weren't exclusive, they'd still be TV exclusive. Impact and New Japan and companies like that had to adjust. The ripple effect down was companies like PWG had to adjust. And what in turn happened for me, it's not judging anyone's prices or work rate, but before you had X price for Young Bucks and Kevin Steen, and they'd literally be a draw. A lot of guys may get buzz from your audience, but as a promoter, you have to differentiate. Is this guy gonna, when you announce a guy and wrestler A gets a bunch of people on social media saying, take my money, oh my gosh, I'm going to be there. A lot of those guys are already your full-time fans or part-time fans. To me, it's fans that, to them, independence is more like Ring of Honor or PWG that are willing to make the drive to come to Smash Wrestling. And when we've had the Lance Storms, the Samoa Joes, the Kevin Steens, the Young Bucks, those guys literally drew new fans. Mm-hmm. Once those guys were signed up, the guys who replaced their spot didn't draw as much as them, and they were charging more. And I'm not knocking them on that. They have the right to that, and that's how the market played out. They became the next guys. And the reality is that these companies that are in the same situation that us, that are a little higher but have to make changes, that's where I express the similarities. They had to offer more money. Ring of Honor had to do that. PWG had to be more aggressive. I don't know what the money was, but they had to basically be more aggressive. I don't want to be presumptuous there, but they had to be presumptuous because, they had to be aggressive because they had guys to replace. And if they didn't reach out to these guys, or if they didn't pay, they wouldn't get them. And I feel like nowadays Impact's doing a respectable job, but they also have to be aggressive. I don't know what their deals are, but if they want the Sami Callahans and they want the top indie guys, they have to be aggressive, or else New Japan or NXT or Ring of Honor is going to be aggressive. And some guys, their alternative option maybe if a company's not aggressive in offering a contract, I'm going to maintain being an independent star. Riddle did that for a while when he had offers until the right offer came about. So there is a trickle down effect there, and it's putting us in a position where it's really difficult to get that draw. I mean, your core audience is passionate, and we've been creative. I think last time we spoke, I mentioned we had to adjust to doing versus shows with other companies, bringing in Progress and CZW and What Culture, and those drew well for us. But it's a short-term fixture. It's something that we've revisited on occasion, and it's done us well, but it's not the long-term band-aid. It is a big challenge, and it's something that we've conversed amongst our team. It's a dialogue that we are very wary of seeing amongst wrestling fans and wrestling media. I mean, the challenge is those of you in the media and the fans and us wrestlers who are extremely passionate about wrestling at this level. We all expressed honest opinions that have some validity, but we're technically not speaking on behalf of those fans that we're trying to chase. Again, there's full-time fans, there's part-time fans. I'm interested in the fan that comes to one or two independent shows in Ontario because Cody Rhodes or Kevin Steen's on it. What will it take to transition that fan who does go to Ring of Honor every time War of Worlds is in town, and get him to give our company a chance, not just to come for one show, but to retain them? I think we've asked a lot of our core audience what was the first show that brought him, and those key 4 or 5 shows that had Progress or AJ Styles or Lance Storm were indeed those shows that did the job. So it's really challenging for us now because the options are less, like you mentioned. And something that fans may not see as a perspective is for us to be in a premium venue that provides the right production for TV, limits us to sometimes 1 or 2 choices in a 5-6 week span. So let's say Neville's on the market and we want him. Guess what? We only have 1 date to offer. The alternative is to go back to a gymnasium, which sometimes we must. But again, that you start playing with, do you lose the TV spot? Do you lose the prestige of the venue? There's a lot of factors that go into that, and some venues of that level, you can't get your dates for a full calendar ahead of time. You got to kind of play cat and mouse with them because they have other big players that roll into their concert venues for sold out shows.
Do you see a big decrease in those stars that, like a Matt Riddle, like a PCO, that could just go all over the place, that those days are kind of coming to an end? Because if someone is able to catch fire like that, they're going to be signed up to an exclusive deal from any one of a number of companies.
They are, but as many guys online are saying, it's cyclical, right? There'll be new guys who will become stars. As for who they are, when that happens, if they'll be actual draws or just buzz guys, I'll use an example. I'm comfortable using this guy as an example just because he's one of my favorite wrestlers. I couldn't put a price on him. Jeff Cobb was one of the greatest guys we brought in, and I'm comfortable not saying, but for variable reasons, he wasn't a draw in Toronto. Our fans ate him up, and he delivered top-notch matches, and it improved the atmosphere, and it gave us online cred. It gave an extra platform to our guys who faced him. He was worth every penny, but he, for whatever the reason, he wasn't drawing what a Young Bucks or the other guys would draw. And you look at a market like Toronto, it's similar potentially. It's like pro sports to New York, Chicago, LA, the big 4 or 5 markets. Boston's there too. These markets kind of need more. That's why those big New Japan Ring of Honor shows are often in those markets, or All In was in those markets. These are the markets that you see in LA. They have nearby PWG. AAW in Chicago is essentially thriving off having a similar format to PWG with all the top luchadors and top Americans. You got to go big, and sometimes that option is not available, and both those companies are readjusting, losing a lot of those guys to from the UK, and at the same time losing a lot of those guys in North America and Mexico.
You mentioned about homegrown stars, and I thought that came to a peak that you guys have been working on for a long time, and that was with Tarek this past August at the Super Showdown event, which I thought was one of your best shows I have ever seen. It's actually a free show you guys have up at smash-wrestling.com. Can you just, for those that maybe did not see the show, the circumstances behind that with Tyson Dukes, and by the end of the night, you have Tarek, who is somebody that I think you guys have done a really great job with, and that has been several years in the making. What was that night for you as a promoter, seeing that moment actualize?
There was a lot of emotion in that, because it was a year and a half in the making. For almost 2-3 years, we've been really good at making stars within this company. I'll never take the full credit. The talent have to do their share in the ring in promoting the show, but we did really well with the Rosemary and Ali starting point when Rosemary transitioned from Courtney Rush. We did well with, building Kevin Bennett, who never used his real life rap skills in a ring until we encouraged it. We've done a lot with a lot of guys. The Wellow Machines were, a unique thing in Smash Wrestling that started up and took our crowd, in a unique way. And we've had a lot of pride in the guys that we're starting to invest in, like the Kevin Blackwoods and the Daniel Garcias. But yeah, it really came down to one or two guys that, at the time we knew Tyson was going to have a long run as a champion, and we just didn't want to transition to someone else. We always had top guys like Johnny Gargano and Matt Cross as our champions. Mark Haskins when we worked with Progress, and Tyson was the first Canadian champion, and this was going to be the first time we make a star as a champion. And it is a risk because of all the big names we've had on our shows, but we wanted to do it right. And essentially what we did is Tyson's long reign was defeated by a screw job, and essentially we made a 8-9 month, even 10-month chase of him winning essentially our version of the Royal Rumble, which is a singles tournament called the Northern. And so the whole story is kind of like winning Rumble to go to Mania to win your title back, and that's what everyone expected to happen. But essentially how we played it out is that the heel stable assaulted Tyson a few shows prior and made sure to do the job the day of the show. And Tarek started the night in a big match of myself, which was a blow-off match. So everyone was satisfied in the crowd with his story, and our job there was to make sure he gets over as much as possible, because in the main event of our biggest show, without giving people the opportunity to foresee Tarek becoming the champion, he's just announced right before the match starts that he's Tyson's replacement. And that's kind of a passing of the torch there. Now, unfortunately, due to a couple circumstances, the title had to be vacated, and we had to kind of work it in with having a vacant title up for grabs. But luckily the story was told right. The night, like you said, was one of our best shows in our history. So by the end of the night, there was a lot of emotion from the locker room and the fans, and Tarek's story was told perfectly. And we've always taken pride in maintaining our roster and building our roster. Our fans will always believe in them, and they'll educate a new crowd, even if they don't know who they are. We know by the end of a show, when Brent Banks' music hits and the crowd starts chanting "Bank his money," and he does what he does with this athletic ability, the new crowd will know who he is, and he will be a valid star in our dressing room. It's just a matter of retaining those fans, and we did a good job with that show. I think we did start to see a new core of fans start coming after that show. So it was a big full stories, and we've been building for over a year that something that was authentic. Tyson always said the 4 pillars of Smash were himself, Brent Banks, Tarek, and myself, 4 guys who always brought the best in each other as opponents. And by the end of the night, we finally stood united, kind of having the other 3 of us come to Tarek's aid. and kind of having a special moment post the match. And it was really cool. Something that I don't know if you guys managed to see online, but we released a video one of the wrestlers recorded backstage. But once Tarek walked through the curtains, literally every single member of our locker room and even our staff, the announcer and the commentator left their post. They were there to give him an ovation. His pregnant wife was there, and you can see how much he was thrown off and humbled by the moment. And that, I really enjoyed that because it was an organic moment, and there was a lot of sincerity and people, his peers and the staff kind of giving him the approval that he is our champ.
I'm curious, like, several years in now, how would you describe maybe Smash Wrestling's identity that separates it from maybe other indie promotions that aren't just available in Toronto, but worldwide? How would you describe it to somebody who hasn't really checked out Smash?
The easiest way I can explain it is with the whole explosion of professional wrestling online, where over the last 20 years, it's transitioned from tapes and DVDs where between YouTube and on-demand streams, wrestling is very accessible. American fans can be educated about wrestling in Japan. Clearly, fans are educated about wrestling in Mexico and the UK now. We've seen over the last decade the relevance of Japanese wrestling in North America. We've seen the UK explosion thanks to the online market. Canada can be the next one, and Canada should. The reality is Canada will always be kind of meshed in with the United States, and American wrestlers can legally come to Canada and Canadian wrestlers can't cross. There used to be exceptions in how it could happen. Now it's just a flat out no, and it's a big risk. A lot of guys have been banned for 5 years. A lot of guys are taking a big chance, and unfortunately how a professional wrestler transitions to getting more bookings in the States is you got to start with a couple smaller companies to get to the bigger ones. But now you're looking at, do you risk 5 years for that smaller company when you still have a fairly good buzz in Canada? So I think that's preventing a lot of Canadians and the Canadian scene from booming. If we had an easier transition in getting into those American companies, I do think there's a good 3 or 4 companies in Eastern Canada between Toronto, Hamilton, Windsor, Ottawa, Montreal that are booming quite well. And if the opportunity to get that exposure transition to these guys going to those companies like Beyond, AIW, AAW, PWG, and others without the risk, I think you'd see a bit more of a boom in the Canadian scene. But I guess that has to kind of happen more internally than our guys crossing over. It is a big challenge, and it's something that's not fair. But like I said earlier, there's always going to be pros and cons to it, and you got to kind of accept and adjust.
You guys are also airing Thursday nights, 8:30 Eastern on the Fight Network in Canada. How have you found when there's a television component to that, and Sunday will be a television taping? Does that present other struggles as well when it comes to getting guys and who you can put on TV, who you can't, and weighing someone that can draw and sell tickets versus someone you can put on television and get the kind of the full value out of as well?
Absolutely. At first, there was the possibility of not having Impact guys on our show, and we already had 2-3 roster members that were with them, but that was worked out at the time with Impact and Anthem, and we were fortunate. But Ring of Honor has always been a challenge. There's a talented locker room there. There's guys who contact us or who can do independent dates, but we have 2 hurdles with them. The Ring of Honor roster are typically exclusive to TV, so we can't have them on our TV show. And even if we were not to air them on TV and just have them there for the live audience, Ring of Honor guys are contracted strictly in the United States plus Toronto. Mm-hmm. So whether we're in Toronto, and I think we tried once or twice with London, it's still considered close enough to Toronto. We can't acquire those guys. So there is a challenge there. And with everyone else kind of being in a rat race to lock up guys and have them under higher restrictions, we're going to encounter those problems again down the road. And it's something that we've been familiar with. It's something that we expect it to continue in that trend. It's been a little more aggressive over the last 6 months, but you deal with it. There's, I think right now you got to be smart and kind of tap into the UK and to the Mexican and to the Japanese markets. It comes at a cost just now with the talent, but the flights and travel and the demand of their schedules. I do think there is a short-term benefit to that, but long-term, I guess the benefit is if you consistently bring these guys long term, there's a benefit. But again, scheduling is very challenging when we have our dates set and these guys have a busy schedule. We trying to balance doing a bit of that in early 2019, but at the same time, kind of like you've mentioned, we do have a talented core roster we've built up, and we really got to get people to buy into us. I wouldn't say we're in a bad place. We've always been in a good place, but it's always what's next. TV has always been a benefit and a blessing to us. It's brought in a new audience, but we have to kind of, again, who are those fans that are part-time fans? If they come to 6 out of 12 shows a year, how do we get them to 12 shows? And to the fans that come once or twice, how do we get them to 6? And to the fans that never come, how do we get them to buy into a Cody Rhodes or a Neville match in Smash Wrestling? In regards to the TV aspect, it's been an incredible challenge. Luckily, the basic format of it and everything else we grasped well and we executed, but we came quickly to realize that you kind of have three audiences. You have the live event audience, you have the TV audience, and you have the social media audience, the people who may not be able to attend. You kind of got to keep all three on the same page, because you alienate one, you start feeling challenges. If the TV, we've always been good from day one not to make our live events feel like a TV taping. We don't want it to go 4 hours. We don't want the main event to start the show and we switch them around the show. Excuse me. So what we did at first, we were kind of in a position based on our 1 hour time slot, which came to 46 and a half minutes, to have 2 to 3 matches a show. It presented challenges that essentially, if you go from 2 live events, some matches may be back-to-back weeks for storyline purposes, or 2 weeks apart, but some were 3-4 weeks apart, unfortunately, and that's really hard to tell. So we accepted, we kind of worked around that, but eventually we got to a point when we have where we're at now, where we have a 1.5 hour time slot. Essentially what we do, we break down our live events to the first half and the second half being 2 shows. So we've always been good with making sure the live event experience of what a Smash Wrestling show is still authentic. It's still the same. We don't break down the shows. The live audience sees what TV sees. If we have to film something, if we have something between 2 matches on TV, we like to show it on the big screen. So we kind of, it's almost like the live event is seeing the exact same thing as TV. The cold openings, the skits, the in-ring promos, the video packages, if there's a beatdown backstage. And we try to get some clips out there. I mean, there's still some challenges because you got to be reality. We are a small operation. We are independent, right? So we have all these staff members who have day jobs and whatnot. It's you can't burn them out. You can't have them put so many hours into this to get that perfected. So I think that's where a lot of independents will see a challenge. It's they grow, and you're too big to be small, too small to be big, and you got to find, eventually you got to decide where you want to commit your time to. And same thing with your game plan. Where's the growth? Where's the money? And sometimes you got to maybe put a little less time in 1 or 2 other fronts.
You were originally going to have Jimmy Havoc versus PCO on this show, and PCO, of course, was is now a full-time wrestler for Ring of Honor. What came into the decision to replace PCO with Holden Albright rather than maybe finding somebody else from the international scene?
It was exactly as promoted. Before we knew that there was a possibility of losing PCO, and we contacted him. We had to wait a few days to hear back from him, and that time, just on the basis that there was a rumor out there, Holden Albright said, "Hey, I'd like to step up and get the Havoc spot if you can put some faith in me." And at first I had my reservations because, again, our audience would recognize that, but we don't want to potentially lose any of the new fans that were coming for that main event, having essentially 2 names in the main event. But we used to be very good at even on 48-hour notice finding a replacement, but those guys are far and few between. And being in a hardcore match and kind of having 2 guys whose style was complementary, it limits you even more when you're trying to go out there and get a draw that would fit the bill. And we talked about it as a team, and we were fine taking the gamble. It's like, let's just tell the story as it is. This kid has a lot of heart and drive, and everyone in Ontario knows he has promise. We think our crowd and the Ontario regulars would receive it well. Let's just tell the honest story. This guy has heart and drive, but he also has balls. He asked for the spot. He wasn't shy to ask for it. So here's your chance, kid. And, fortunately, it was received very well. And I do think, we didn't have any refunds. Anyone who was there still for Jimmy Havoc and Kikutaro and all the other high profile guys, I think they'll be impressed by him. And it's consistent with the rest of our roster, with the Tareks and the Rosemarys. They'll be impressed with our guys that they didn't come there. The idea is they come for these guys, but they stay for our guys. So I think this will be a similar scenario.
We got one question here from our live chat room, and it comes from Hansi, who wants to know if you've ever considered perhaps if the WWE ever came calling to propose a deal like they have with Evolve or Progress. Is that something that you are working towards, or is that something you're just not even thinking about?
It crossed my mind, because people have suggested it, and they are being aggressive about how they go around the globe, to be honest. But I feel they wouldn't, on the basis that Canada is essentially a similar market to the United States. And for example, Evolve would come and has come in the past to Toronto. Ring of Honor comes to Toronto. Impact comes to Toronto. It's part of the same market, just like pro sports. Toronto is part of the same market as for NHL and Major League Baseball and NBA. So I don't think they would need a Canadian brand, but I feel like if they needed a Canadian brand, I think just on the basis of who we are and who we've built ourselves and our reputation, we would be in the conversation. But at the same time, it's I try not to be too blind to it, but I've taken a lot of pride in this being kind of my baby, and my team has some ownership to it too, because they put a lot of sweat and tears and blood into this too. So and I've been open to the fact that it might not be WWE. If we have a partnership with anyone, whether it's WWE, there's a lot of people chasing big goals right now. It'd have to be under the right circumstances. So I think the best course of action is to always be open-minded either way. But we've had a lot of faith in what we've done, and if we are to take a step like that, it has to be under some of our own terms.
Sebastian, you've been very generous with your time today. I want to let everyone know that In Your Dreams is going down this Sunday in Etobicoke, Ontario, the Franklin Horner Community Center. The bell time is 5 p.m. It's going to feature Jimmy Havoc taking on Holden Albright. The Pillars, consisting of Brent Banks, Tarek, and Tyson Dukes, taking on the Kevin Bennett Experience. Kikutaro will be there doing a seminar earlier in the day, which I hope, Sebastian, you guys record that. That could be fascinating. He's taking on Mike Rollins, and you will be taking on Daniel Garcia, who I have just heard tremendous things about. This is match 3 of your best of 5 series, and he just seems like one of the many names that should be on a lot of people's radar.
Yeah, I mean, just to give you an idea of what the kid's all about, is the other day on social media, he just posted "Hungry Dogs Run Faster," and that's not a slight at anyone who's been around, but that's his mentality, that he is not shy to work hard and to be confident about his quality of in-ring work, and he's not going to be denied, in my opinion. If someone doesn't open the door for him, he'll find another door.
You can, again, catch that show this Sunday, 5 p.m. All the information, smash-wrestling.com, and you can watch them on the Fight Network. Thursday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And Sebastian, thanks so much. I always love having you on. You always provide so much insight. I think that you are someone that really understands all the trends and are typically ahead of the curve of where things are going. So thanks so much for your time today.
I appreciate it. It's always a fun chat.
Great.
Thanks, Sebastian.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right. That was Sebastian Suave. Very much thank him for joining us on the show. And I mean, that's somebody who I think really has a great understanding of the landscape. And I think 2019 is going to be such an interesting year from all the different topics we covered there. We covered quite a lot there.
Toronto, I think, being as competitive of a market for professional wrestling as it is, I think it says a lot that, his cards are often ones that you and I will talk about. And, to me, he has been making the most waves on an independent level of all the competitors.
I would seriously recommend, if you haven't watched any Smash, to watch that free show they put up on their site, the Super Showdown event from this past August. I know you didn't make it to that show, but I thought that was maybe my favorite Smash show. It's just a great show, and it had the big Tarek title win on it and some great stuff. Tessa Blanchard was on that show, Jeff Cobb, PCO. So anyway, that's a great kind of introduction if you have not been open to seeing Smash in the past. But
At this time, I threw out the link right there in there for the chat room. If anybody's interested in jumping in the chat, we have our first one already, and it's our favorite friend, Hansi, who is attempting to connect. Hansi, let us know if you can hear us as we await your call. But there he is, Hansi.
Oh, what's up, man?
You're on. What's up, dude? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
How does it feel to be on the biggest show you've ever called into?
No, dude, this is probably second, man. For real. I gotta
Hansi,
say
of course, a former regular on the Howard Stern show.
thank you so much for that. Actually, I got a story. At the gym, there's a guy with a Bullet Club shirt, and normally I'm a wrestling nerd, so when I see a guy with a Bullet Club shirt, I do the too sweet thing with them. And then we started talking, and then he said, "Yeah, I listen to Post Wrestling," and so you guys united, Post Wrestling is uniting fucking wrestling fans all over the place.
Wow,
We're big in the gym scene.
I guess so.
Yeah, but my question, I don't want to take too much of your time because I know other people might want to call in, but I just want to ask, what are you guys looking forward to this weekend as far as TLC goes? Like, what match really get you guys going for that?
I think that the women's three-way is going to be excellent. I'm looking forward to that a lot, and
It reminds me that we were actually supposed to do our preview.
Well, I've got the card here. We are going to quickly go through that. We had a great interview, so I don't mind.
Hansi, that's an awesome segue. Why don't we just get into our preview right now? Well, first, I want to hear what you're most interested in, Hansi.
What stands out?
For me, I gotta say, man, this women's feud is really, really good, man. Like, I think this is probably one of the better things that have taken place during this. I don't know. I call it the creative lull, I guess. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm glad Asuka is finally. I was disappointed with Asuka. I'm glad Becky is getting pushed, but I hate that Asuka took a several month tumble to the mid card or something like that. But before I go, Pollock, I just want to ask quickly: have you watched Mayans yet, or are you gonna watch it?
I will. It's something I want to get to. I just finished Making a Murderer season 2. Which I did not enjoy, but the Mayans is on my list. It's just finding the time to. But once I do, I will share my thoughts.
I'll say this: that if you're a Sons of Anarchy fan, the tie-ins creatively will make you go, okay, this is worth it because I'm getting an extended view of what's going on in Sons of Anarchy and all that.
The tie-ins to the Mayans. I can't wait. You've sold me. I'm sure I'm certain that I'll like it.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, Hansi.
Thank you, Hansi.
Always good to catch up with Hansi.
Always love hearing from that guy. All right, TLC. Let's quickly get in there. If any of you guys want to call in, you can do so. I'll probably have to put you on mute as we go through this, but we'll try to get to you before the end.
Has this been the most seamless cafe hangout that we have done?
I would say so, and maybe a
call and an interview.
Let's not jinx us, okay?
This has been a perfect show.
It's only been 48 minutes. All right, let's go.
Okay, let's start. I am just going to go here from the bottom up. So let us start with Rey Mysterio versus Randy Orton, a chairs match.
Yeah.
What are your favorite chairs matches, Way?
They don't often come to mind. I mean, there's certainly not a stipulation like a ladder or a table. The least intimidating of the three weapons in the title here. But I'm of the opinion that this was a match that probably didn't really require a stipulation and really just kind of has this chair thing, wedged in there. No pun intended. I expect it to be a good match, though, because these two are, like I said, veteran performers. I'm a little disappointed that maybe we didn't get that one big segment coming out of SmackDown to lead into this. Like I said, I thought the first week of them doing something together was the most important week, and I expect this feud to actually continue. It does not feel like they've kind of, hit that peak yet.
They have to tape in a relatively small window over the holidays. I think a lot of these feuds, you could see rematches on television and blow-offs to the feuds then. I could see that with a lot of these. I see Randy going over. I would argue that for his character, it would have been great to do a big, some heinous attack with the chair, but that's been done now. It's been done twice. It's kind of redundant at this point. Yeah. And I don't like the idea of Ray beating Randy at the moment. Randy seems to be the one that
would end the feud.
It kind of would. Yeah.
So Randy Orton.
Buddy Murphy versus Cedric Alexander. They have not announced what is on the kickoff and what's on the main show. Wouldn't surprise me if this is on the kickoff, but maybe they'll throw it somewhere in the midst of the show. The the story of every 205 Live match. I think it'll be one of the best matches on the show, and it ultimately will come down to whether the San Jose crowd is into the match or not, because a dead crowd will hurt it and a hot crowd will elevate it.
I think they will be into it. It's also dependent on when they go on, but I also don't even think so. Like, I think at this point, how, previous iterations of WWE's cruiserweights have existed, I don't think there's a real bad stigma of these guys being boring. I think the stigma, the rep now,
it's just their familiarity with the characters. How many are following 205 Live?
Right, but the rep now, I think for 205 Live is that like everybody knows the matches are solid, and oftentimes like the best matches on the whole thing. Yeah, like they had at the Super Showdown. I'm trying to think of another match that was better than that one, and it's kind of hard for me to think about.
Ali and Buddy Murphy at Survivor Series was very good.
Yes. So, I think everybody now sees the 205 Live roster with a level of respect. And I predict San Jose will give them that same respect. On that note, did you see like when WWE tweeted out that photo of like the 205 Live roster gathered around the monitors
during Ali's match?
Ali was having that match. That just makes you want to cheer for that whole crop of guys. They truly are the underdogs of that entire, at least if you consider them a part of the main roster, they really are.
The 205 Live 24 special will be great.
I would love to see that. Yeah, just to kind of know what's going through all these guys' heads. I don't keep up with the week to week. To me, it's just too much product to watch and not enough relevance to be given to them. But I will gladly tune in for a match like this.
I see Murphy retaining.
I do too.
Natalya, Ruby Riott in a tables match.
Oh God, this is the one with the Jim Neidhart stuff, right? With the Jim Neidhart table.
I will, if they have Natalya go through that Jim Neidhart table, I just think this should be Natalya, her win, and now the feud is over for a second time.
I think so too. I think it's better off. Like, this was definitely, I would say, one of the feuds that maybe got some criticism over the past several weeks, along with the piss, along with the, all that stuff. I expect Raw to have a bit more of a reset than it even did this past week, and I imagine this feud will go by the wayside.
What if
so Natalya probably has to win?
I'm trying to think of a way you could incorporate a new set of sunglasses for
It kind of like came to my head the other day that, hey, like I'm watching Total Divas and Natalya's putting over the importance of this jacket. What if somewhere in the whole creative process during Raw these past several weeks, somebody suggested pissing on Jim Neidhart's jacket? And then I could, like, this is all hypothetical. This is not my mind.
Don't give them any ideas.
But like, what if somebody suggested, hey, Natalya has to get, or Ruby has to get heat on Natalya? What's the most, I think, associated part of Jim Neidhart's memory? It's the jacket. It's even mentioned in Total Divas. Maybe somebody suggested pissing on the jacket. Obviously, Natalya didn't want to do that, but they loved the piss. Somebody there loved the pissing so much they decided to bring it to Bobby. I don't know. I'm just saying, what if?
The Bar versus the New Day versus the Usos for the SmackDown tag titles could be a very good match. What concerns me is that this is such a big card of matches that you're going to have some shorter matches that are probably not going to get the time necessary. But if given the time, I kind of like that these three teams don't have a stipulation they have to work around. I think that they could just have a really great three-way match.
I do too. Although, like, Bully Ray tweeted out this past week that he really wished that these three would have had the TLC stipulation, because he feels like these six people would be the closest the closest chance anybody would get to living up to or surpassing the legacy that those previous TLC matches set. And I'm like, ever since he said that, I'm like, man, I wish this was, but the storyline isn't really there. It's not hot enough for a TLC match. Right?
I agree. I feel that TLC stipulation, it should be when the match is ready for it. Not that this stipulation is going to just be added to help the match.
But again, that's also up to them. Let's say, like, 3 weeks earlier, they said, hey, remember those amazing TLC matches? Nobody has been able to beat those TLC matches since. We are the group of guys that could do it. And then if you just hit that note for 3 weeks, I think this would have been just as hot, but maybe nobody really thought about it.
Elias versus Bobby Lashley. It's a ladder match, but the guitar will be above the ring and you can grab the guitar and then use it as a weapon.
See, like, for whatever reason, like, at least those tag teams, I think, could have really benefited from having a ladder. Instead, they give the ladder to Elias versus Lashley,
I don't have any interest in this match.
Makes no sense. I don't care either. Like, as a match, I have no real interest in it. I guess. Do you think the ladder will help or hinder an Elias match?
I don't think it makes any difference. I don't think it's.
I think it's so stupid that you're hanging guitar so that you can use. Like, is the match over?
No, you can just use it.
So you can use it, and what is it? You pinfall then?
And then ends up.
I mean, it just to me it completely negates like the ladder. But
I think Leo Rush is taking a guitar shot.
Sure. Yeah, I could see that.
Finn Balor, if healthy, taking on Drew McIntyre. This could be very good. It's kind of just in the middle of nowhere. And with Balor off TV, the feud has been Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler. And this kind of just feels like a match with Finn, kind of getting his revenge on Drew, costing him his first loss on Raw.
Yeah, this too to me is a feud that doesn't really feel all that hot. I could see it. I mean, either way, I see Drew winning, and I could see them just being done with it.
Well, being undefeated or lots of wins don't matter all that much. So Drew could lose. It's fine.
I just don't see like Finn Balor beating him, but I do see. I mean, I could see the feud continuing. I think both guys are projects of theirs. Drew, obviously, but I think they see a lot of value in Balor as well.
Well, what else is there for Drew in the immediate future? Like, this big gap until the Rumble, and he should be one of the prime focal points of the Rumble, but you've blown through that Dolph feud. I don't need to see that ever again.
I mean, we always talk about with Finn Balor, as a regular person, he is very beatable, but as the demon, he always has to have reason to bring the demon. This could be a feud where
maybe Drew's going to beat him as the demon.
That'd be really sad. That'd be really sad. But I mean, the Rumble is coming up, and I think that Rumble would be justification to bring a demon out if you wanted to.
Then let's go. Oh, the finals way. This has your heart. Fabulous Truth against Mahalisha.
Oh, this is the real main event, isn't it? This is actually listed number 1.
I know.
On the Wikipedia. I don't know.
That's why I'm not building up to that as the last match.
Dude, well, I don't know.
R-Truth and Carmella are winning this.
Who's gonna have the funnier skits? On vacation, quote unquote. I do think also. I mean, R-Truth and Carmella are certainly the fan favorites, but I mean, what does that matter? Like, they're into building heat, and I'm leaning more towards. No, I'm with you, Truth and Carmella, because like Jinder and Alicia coming out number 30 each, it means nothing.
This should be on the kickoff.
I think so too. I in hindsight, like I think the 30th entrant thing is such a waste of a stipulation to give to this tournament. Like, most of the focus has been on this vacation. You could have just said winner gets the vacation, and I think you would have had the same amount of importance and intrigue in a match like this.
But there's a great idea, and I can't take credit for this. It was Dave Meltzer who had the idea that
dance break.
No, you can have R-Truth get attacked, and then there's a mystery person coming in number 30, and that can be a debut of somebody of importance.
That never makes sense, though. You attack somebody on their way out, and all of a sudden you
take their number.
You get their contract.
Wait, we just reviewed SummerSlam 2013. Possession of the Money in the Bank briefcase, you get the control. That's how things work.
But then that debuting person is going to have to lose the Rumble.
Maybe not. Who says they have to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not sure.
Depends on what the idea is.
Who not currently on the roster could foreseeably win the Rumble. But anyway.
I don't really care about the number 30 spot, so whatever they do is fine with me. Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose for the Intercontinental title. It's listed here on Wikipedia as a ladder match. It's not a ladder match. It's just a straight up match.
Okay. Yeah, Wikipedia. We should probably not use Wikipedia anymore.
Unless they change something without telling you on television.
Yeah, we should probably not use Wikipedia. It's not possible. A ladder match. Not a ladder match.
But where do you see them going here? This is a very important match, especially for Ambrose.
I mean, I think Dean has to win. The feud has barely kind of began. It's been a month.
That kind of slots Dean immediately, doesn't it? Like to lose. Like, where does this go afterwards?
I think Dean has to win.
Oh, I thought you said Dean loses. Sorry.
No. I think Dean has to win.
Okay, gotcha.
Take the title from Seth and just kind of build up from there.
And Seth, I mean, I feel Seth should probably be winning the Rumble, or at least be coming out pretty strong. I feel he should be a Brock match at Mania.
I think so too, man. But what does he just leave Dean at that point? And who's Dean's opponent? Maybe they're looking at Dean versus Roman as a program if Roman is healthy.
Well, that's a major if, especially for WrestleMania.
They don't know.
Yeah,
possible.
but you got to start making plans now. You need to
Right.
have things in place. And to me, Seth is going to be the bigger priority going into Mania. And they're clearly going that direction. That is the promos from Seth. He is dropping the hints, which that's all the extent of it should be now, is hints.
Either way, I feel like Dean is the one that you should kind of really be putting a lot of your focus on and building. And Seth can lose that title and move on to the world title picture.
I also hope that it's a bit of a different style from Dean Ambrose. I don't want him to wrestle the same way he did as a babyface. I want to see some different things from Dean, because we haven't seen a big... He's been kind of limited in terms of matches since the turn. So this is the first big showcase of the new character, and I hope that there's some differences, whether it's his look as well, his gear.
He's already debuted a new look. He's got a jacket and the Bane mask.
He might come out with that. Braun Strowman and Baron Corbin TLC match. I can see a lot of smoke and mirrors in this. I don't expect a full-out match here, given that Braun just had surgery. I can see Rhino showing up here. I can see a bunch of stuff, like all of Baron's past coming to bite him, and Braun wins the match.
I feel like you'll probably see, like, things like Rhino. I wonder if Slater actually will be involved here.
I think he has to be.
Yeah,
I think all that stuff is going to be involved.
Right, okay. So, but, I mean, I think in that either case, I feel like with
Kurt Angle could maybe, I don't know.
I feel like you save that for Raw,
maybe.
But like, I think Baron Corbin loses this one, number one, because Braun has to be get the title shot, and then because Raw needs to get rid of this Baron Corbin GM thing. I think they're seeing the trend. I think they want to wrap this thing up as quick as possible, and this is their out.
No, I feel that third hour on Monday, that number, I think that should seal it. You've got to end this now. Ronda Rousey, Nia Jax for the Raw Women's title. They had a very good match at Money in the Bank. I'm expecting good things from this. Ronda does not disappoint on pay-per-views. I think that this should be a really good match. I think they'll get a lot of heat, especially for Nia. And I guess it'll be curious what the direction is coming out of this.
Yeah, I'm curious too. I'm curious to see how the crowd reacts to Ronda. This is a crowd that I imagine will still continue to be really hot for Becky Lynch. I wonder if they'll cheer Becky Lynch all over this match, which I think is possible. But Ronda, obviously, to me, will retain.
Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles for the WWE title. I'm curious what kind of reaction Daniel Bryan gets in this, because I feel it's just going to be all of a sudden at a pay-per-view, or it's going to be an overwhelmingly positive response.
You think so?
I don't think we're there yet, but we're getting close to it.
I mean, number one, he's in there with AJ, who I don't think the fans are really going to boo. Like,
no, this is a good opponent to pair him with.
If he was in there with Baron Corbin, then like this audience is going to turn. But I think a Daniel Bryan audience is one that understands and respects what the man is trying to achieve and won't necessarily go against what he's trying to do. So I think they will play along and boo him.
No need to take the title off of Bryan. You've just started this. Where does this go in the show?
I don't think it'll close. I think it'll go somewhere towards the latter, I don't know, third of the card. Yeah.
And then we have Becky Lynch, Charlotte, and Asuka. Triple threat, tables, ladders, and chairs match for the SmackDown Women's title.
Main event.
I'd put this on last.
Yeah.
It's going to be, it features the hottest character. It's the biggest feud going into this show. It's the most fans' interest.
It's a TLC match.
Yes.
Certainly I put this in interest. I'd put it ahead of Baron Corbin versus Braun Strowman.
I wouldn't even be debating closing the show with this. I think it's such an easy choice. I am intrigued with where they go. This is a way to get the title off of Becky without her having to suffer a loss. It, on the one hand, you could put it on Charlotte, and then Becky going into the Rumble, it presents an interesting scenario if she were to win the Rumble and her choices are Ronda or Charlotte, because she has history with both. And then she also has the Nia stuff to tie up. Or you could just surprise people and could argue that, I mean, is there any chance of Asuka winning this? Or do you think that it's either Charlotte or Becky that leaves with this title?
There's a chance.
I think there's a chance too.
I certainly think
that this could ultimately rehabilitate Asuka. And I think there's a very good chance Becky loses this. Now, you could also argue, why should we be screwing with this? She is on fire. Is now the time to take the title off?
I think now is the time to take it off. Because
with the idea that we're giving her something bigger chasing it for WrestleMania.
Winning the Rumble to me is bigger than holding the belt for another month. I think Becky is your lead babyface in the company right now, and I think giving her that final spotlight by winning being the last person seen at the end of the Royal Rumble pay-per-view with that momentum heading into WrestleMania is certainly the way to go. And again, it gives you the opportunity to transition her from the SmackDown roster to the Raw roster or whatever. They could still end up doing a three-way at the end, but their options are open. But the key is to have Becky Lynch, I think, being the chaser.
Knowing the long game for Becky Lynch, would it have been a smarter choice to have accentuated the injury and done the idea of stripping her of the title rather than putting her in this scenario where she does have to lose the title?
Right. Okay. So if you
sacrifice her on this show, knowing that the bigger story is her being the title is taken away from her and she's got to fight her way back for it without actually losing it.
I think that would have been fine too. So let's play that scenario. They strip Becky of the belt. That means you have Charlotte versus Asuka potentially on this show.
Yeah.
The result, I think, would have largely been the same. Maybe they felt like, hey, Becky's healthy. Why are we taking her off when we could do the same thing by putting her in this three-way, But the more I think about it, the more I think for sure Becky has to lose the belt.
All right. That's TLC. 12 matches. God forbid if they add any more than that. A
lot of matches, yeah. All right. Very lively chat room tonight. Thank you all for being here. Again, we're way past, I think, our usual time. I don't know if many of you guys still want to jump on or whatnot. But
let's give it a few minutes while I go over what's.
You can even throw out your questions there in the chat room, and we'll try to get into them.
So, very busy weekend. We talked about it earlier this week, but starting tonight, MLW has 2 nights in Miami. Friday night, they have a live broadcast from 8 till 9. So they'll actually be going head-to-head with the Final Battle pay-per-view, which is now at 8 o'clock Friday night, and that's a 4-hour show and maybe the most newsworthy show of the weekend.
Wonderful. Yeah, Final Battle, I think, is very interesting now. I will be very curious to hear your review.
Yes, the Elite are scheduled as well for Saturday night at the TV taping, so that's their last official appearance for ROH.
All right, we got one final guest to join in on this show. He is a man who was really looking forward to being a part of this, so I'm glad you've made it on. MJ from NJ, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Well, today I am live from New York City. I was previously outside of Grand Central, but then I had to come inside, back to the office.
Live from New York,
you guys.
Oh, dude, thank you so much, man. It's nice to see you and to finally talk to you in person, man. What's on your mind today?
You guys just touched on it. Final Battle. I'll be there on Friday night. Very excited. John, I'll look to send you a live report.
That's great. It's a great card. Yeah, it looks like a very strong card on Friday night at the Hammerstein.
What are you most looking forward to?
Cautiously optimistic that there is going to be some kind of big payoff, big angle. I think that the way that being the Elite has kind of played out, they certainly signaled something. They usually do deliver when they've done that in the past in big ways. So looking forward to that. But
Tony Khan runs out.
I too am like, my interest is certainly heightened as a result of being the Elite, but I don't like knowing that your employees are going to leave your company. Would you give them that airtime to play an angle to help them transition?
So define leave for me, because here's what I've been kind of thinking throughout the last couple of weeks since we found out about the All Elite Wrestling is it could just be another promotion, just like Ring of Honor, just like Impact, just like Game Changer, just like any of these, that they can work together. And if there is a deal that is struck to work together and to maybe promote the all-in shows under All Elite Wrestling and do sponsorships and merchandise and the things that the Elite kind of have done on their own already, that is a promotion that exists for that purpose. And there's still the talent share. And same thing with the New Japan situation. I did want to touch on that. The New Beginning U.S. shows, to book those and to not have those guys locked in, it's kind of mind-boggling. You're going to keep the main talent in Japan, right? Okada, Tanahashi, Naito. They're not going to come to the U.S. if you're doing New Beginning shows in Japan. And then you're not going to have the Bucks and Hangman, the U.S. guys, here to represent your company.
I think the talent announcements for those U.S. shows will kind of tell the tale on how they view those US shows. And I mean, the LA show, it's not a very big venue they're running, but the Charlotte venue is. That's a couple thousand to fill the Grady Cole Center. And what kind of talent they're going to earmark for those shows. I mean, those are not shows you can just fill with dojo guys. They are going to have to set aside some people. And I guess the curiosity will be, how big of a name will they set aside for those US shows? And what kind of a priority are these shows? They're not running them for no reason.
Completely agree. And that's kind of why I say, like, to plan these out. Same thing with the Garden right now with the Super Show. To plan these things out where they can kind of flop if you don't have the marquee names, or at least some people there, seems a little short-sighted. And I just, the way the booking has been so good over the last couple of years, I can't imagine they would go into it like that.
Great. Anything else on your mind, MJ?
The last thing, because I do have to get back to work. Curious your thought on the defense of Raw writing and how difficult that task has been. I know that I think Jimmy Jacobs and Seth Rollins certainly chimed in yesterday, and then I believe it was Wade Keller who might have responded today, kind of similar to how I was saying it in the forum yesterday. Is you're getting paid a lot of money. This is a job. Like, I don't want to hear how hard it is. If it's that hard, then don't book 5 hours of live TV and make it easier on yourself. So I'll leave you guys with that to maybe get your thoughts.
Sure. I just want to say I loved your thread and I loved your response. Like, basically MJ says, get the fuck out with that nonsense. WWE is going to get paid over $2 million an hour starting October. I have zero sympathy for writers in the company that milks their fans for every last ounce of free time. I totally understand, you know, like if could we use the same excuse if it was like, you know, another TV show?
I think it's, listen, and I have a lot of sympathy for the writing staff at WWE. It's an incredible amount that they have to put out. I don't compromise that with quality, though. And they're in a system where it's ultimately one person's vision. That is what you are watching on Mondays and Tuesday nights. That is Vince McMahon's show. And it's a very difficult show that sometimes I know for a fact that writers are trying to push things through, and they can be very resistant to any kind of change and getting anything past a certain point. It can be very difficult. So I can see a lot of frustration in a system. If you are one member of that team that has an idea, that has a long-term story, but you are somewhat handcuffed. But the idea just that it's hard and somehow we have to be able to just, sorry. Like, that's,
but then say that
by you guys accepting those rights fees and taking the positives of that third hour, it also comes with a responsibility. And not to compare us, but you know, if you and I were just to do a podcast, we did this show and it's terrible and we had nothing great to say and it was just a waste of time. And all these people complained about it afterwards. And our response was, we do so many shows every week. It's really hard. I don't think people would be all that sympathetic. Like, you guys take this on and you want to get a quality show. And on top of that, it's the biggest complaints are coming from people that are still watching the show. So I wouldn't want to necessarily upset those people that are still watching this 3-hour show every week.
I don't disagree that, like, you know, writers probably get the brunt of like most of the anger, you know, when it comes to professional wrestling, Raw and SmackDown in particular. But yeah, at the same time, I feel like it's best to just not say anything and just take it and just respond by producing good television.
I mean, at the end of the day, that company put out a show on Monday night where their babyface lead is telling you this show sucks.
Yeah,
that's the message you are giving out on your own show, and you're stunned that the audience is echoing that sentiment.
Well, I mean, like, that was more so echoing the sentiment that was already on the internet, you know, like Seth Rollins was basically the voice of the internet at that time. But of course it amplifies it. Sure.
But that's the portrayal of the show at the moment. Right. Raw sucks at the moment is the theme. That is the story of Raw at the moment. Our show sucks.
Yeah, it does. But we continue to watch, and we'll see if they change coming Monday after TLC.
All right, this has been the longest edition of the Café Hangout.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap it up. Big thank you to Sebastian Suave once again in Your Dreams is going down Sunday, 5 Eastern, from Etobicoke, Ontario's Franklin Horner Community Center. Thanks again for joining us. For Wai Ting, I'm John Pollock. Thank you for hanging out.